Hello, thank you for tuning into another episode of Tech Talk Tuesdays. For those who don't know me, my name is Brian. My company is Veranda Technologies. We operate in Brick Township, New Jersey, and serve the Ocean, Monmouth, and surrounding counties in this area. Today, on this week's video, we're going to talk about passwords. I could talk about password security for hours. Fortunately for you, we'll keep this video to hopefully between 10 and 15 minutes so you can get back to your day. Password security is evolving all the time, and it's become pretty complex, particularly the types of passwords that you have to have for websites to log into things has become complex, and they get harder and harder to track. I understand that. There are, fortunately or unfortunately, some pretty tried and true rules that apply all the time, and we'll cover those real quick. You've heard them before, you're going to hear them again. We will likely do videos on password security more frequently than any other topic we cover, because quite frankly, it's one of the more alarming trends. It's one of the more easily fixed things that we can do, and overwhelmingly when accounts are hacked, it's because of weak passwords, weak password practices and policies. So I'll jump right in. Rule number one, don't write your passwords down in plain sight ever. Now, at home, maybe you can make that exception. If it's a private home, less risk, obviously, right? Keeping your passwords up on a post-it on the monitor or in a notepad in a desk drawer. In a common workspace, this is what we're talking about. You work in an office, you work for a township, you work anywhere where there's other people coming and going, even if they're only people that you trust. It could be a secure workplace. If there are other people around, you don't want to have your passwords listed. It's just a pretty simple rule. There's a lot of reasons for it. Just don't do it. We'll talk a little bit later in the video about the use of apps. I'm actually all for the use of password apps, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Rule number two, don't use simple to crack passwords. Now, simple to crack by a human and simple to crack by a computer can mean very different things. Real quick funny story, I had a client once use a password of aardvark. It's a fairly uncommon word, not something that anybody would ever guess in a million years. But the word starts with the letter A twice. It's A-A-R-D. It's if it's not the first word in the dictionary, it's one of the first words in the dictionary. And when passwords are cracked, when websites are hacked and threat actors on the internet use programs to hack passwords, they generally start with a dictionary attack, what's called a dictionary attack. So it runs through derivatives of every word in the dictionary with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, things like that after them. And they try to brute force the account. It's very fast. They can get through an entire dictionary attack in relatively short order. So if you're using a word like aardvark, it's going to take 5 or 6 seconds and we're in. Now, if you put symbols and numbers after it, we'll get to that a little bit later, that will make it exponentially harder to crack the password. But you don't want to use just common words without symbols, without letters. You really want to mix your passwords up a little bit. Which brings me to rule number 3. And this is the one that trips a lot of people up, and it is by far the most annoying. I understand that. Don't use the same password for every site that you log into. I know that you have a lot of websites to log into. I have an enormous amount of websites to log into. I have probably over 200 sites that I use just for myself, and then I have all of my clients and all of their sites and all of their customers. There's a lot of sites, a lot of online accounts that we use, a lot of things that we log into. Maybe they're not websites. They could be. It doesn't matter. The problem with using the same password for everything that you log into is if that password is obtained by even one person, no matter how they obtain it, it could be a friend that sees it written down, or a friend that knows a password for something, or more concerning nowadays with online password theft, identity theft, things like that, somebody will break into a relatively low security site, not an Amazon or a Walmart or a Target. They'll break into your local water company, your electric company, small cellular provider, community bank that you do business. Something somewhere will get hacked. Now they have your password. So they have your password for that. I can guess that your password might be the same for Amazon, that your password might be the same for Dropbox, that your password might be the same for etc. And now I can get into more critical stuff. If I can get into your TurboTax account, I can get your social security number. If I can get into your Amazon account, I can order myself a large screen TV and have it shipped wherever I want, all because I have your password. So you don't want to use the same password for all things. Now, you can use similar passwords for things. Again, going down that same logic, if somebody hacked, let's say Dropbox gets hacked, and somebody gets your password for Dropbox, even if there's a one-character difference between your Dropbox password and every other site, using that stolen password isn't going to get them anywhere because they can't log into that other site. Now, they can guess, maybe have a little bit better chance at getting in, but if you're not using the same password for everything, it's a lot harder to automate the process of automatically logging in with a password that was stolen. I'll talk a bit about apps in a moment. There are two new features that a lot of websites are allowing. The first is the ability to log in as. So you can log in as Google, log in as Facebook, log in as one of your other accounts. And they'll use some of the popular ones. I've seen log in as Amazon recently. I'm actually okay with those, except that you're now using the same password for that site. Now, you're not giving that site your password. Most of these sites are set up in a way where you're not, and this gets very technical very quickly, you're not issuing that password to the website. They're just verifying that it's you and logging you in. So that's good. It still violates rule number 4, which is, rule number 3, which is don't use the same passwords to log into everything. But you, if you must, that's a little bit safer. The other thing that websites are now doing, and if you hit a website that says they have two-factor authentication, might also be listed as just 2FA, the number 2FA. Two-factor authentication effectively means that the person logging in needs to provide multiple forms of proof that they're the person that should be logging in. So an example is Google now offers two-factor authentication. Apple as well. So if I try to log in because I've enabled two-factor authentication on my Google and my Apple accounts, if I try to log in with my email address and my password from a computer that I've never logged in from before or a cell phone that I've never logged in from before, it says, just want to make sure you're the person you say you are, we're going to send you a text. When you get that text, enter the 6, 7, 9, whatever digit number is in that text in this box on the website. Now, somebody needs my email address or my username, they need my password, and they need my cell phone, which they're not going to have. And if they have my cell phone, I'm going to know it, and I'm going to make sure that I can go back and change my passwords for things that matter, so that if somebody gets my cell phone or uses it maliciously, they can't log into these sites. So two-factor authentication, it is not 100% foolproof, but it makes it ridiculously harder for somebody to log in from a device that you're not used to logging in from. And I did skip over a rule I just noticed. Randomly change your passwords, particularly the ones that you use frequently. And again, I know that's frustrating and annoying. You can put them into an app, and I wanted to talk a little bit about apps. I'm going to cover, I'll do a separate video on several of the popular data vault type apps, password apps for both Android and iOS, as well as PC and Mac-based app vault programs. We'll do that in another video. For now, I will keep it simple and say I fully support the use of an app to keep all of your passwords in. From a security standpoint, Most of them are very secure. Some of them offer two-factor authentication now. So from a security standpoint, use an app to keep track of your passwords. That's great. The bigger risk when you use an app is the risk of loss or theft of the device and you not having access to those passwords anymore. So I don't worry that if somebody steals my phone, they're going to have all the passwords in it because they're also behind a lock and key. And I'll give you another little tip that I do with my app in a minute. I don't worry about somebody getting the passwords. I worry about me not having them. Because if I can't log into something because I've lost my phone or my phone died or I fell into a swimming pool, whatever, I'm not going to be able to log into anything. So the app I got, and there are many like it, the app I purchased is called Data Vault, D-A-T-A Vault. And one of the things I liked about it is that over Wi-Fi, you can sync your database with a PC-based version of the program on my computer. So the app cost $10. It was the most expensive app I've ever bought, worth every penny, because every time I walk into my house and hit Wi-Fi, I sync that database. It's automatic. It syncs right with the computer, and I have 2 copies of the database all the time. So if something happens to the computer, everything's still on the phone. If something happens to the phone, vice versa. So yes, I have thousands and thousands of usernames, passwords, bank account numbers, social security info for everybody in the family. They're in an app. But I play some mind games, and this is kind of important and can help you set passwords for yourself when you hopefully listen to this video and say, I need to start making some changes in my life. I'm going to make my passwords more complex. Get yourself an app and start a new system. And your system can be any number of things, and you'll find one that works for you when you sit down and spend 5 minutes thinking about it. But I use kind of mind games when I put my notes in my app. I'm a Mets fan. So if I had a password, and I don't, because this would be ridiculously easy for somebody to figure out if they knew me, but if I had passwords that were Mets 1970 exclamation point, let's just say, in my app, I might put baseball 1970 exclamation point. If somebody steals my phone, they're not going to know what that means. They're not going to be able to make the mental leap that baseball equals Mets, but I'll know it. So all I have to do is look, oh, all right, I know what password that is now. My grandmother lived in Florida for most of her life. Sorry. So if my grandparents were my password, if I had Grandma 1971 or Manny 1971 exclamation point, maybe in the vault it says Florida 1971 exclamation point. So you can play some games like that. I know somebody who uses part of the website that they're logging into, and that's their way of shaking things up. So maybe your passwords are all Mets 1971 DRB for Dropbox exclamation point and AMZ for Amazon exclamation point. Again, now your passwords are different. It's a 2-part password. The website equates to part of it, and that's easy for somebody to figure out, but they're not necessarily going to know that if they use that same password for another site, which letters you've used. Maybe it's the first letter and the last letter. Maybe it's the last 3 letters backwards. You can find a way to mix that up and make your, just play little games like that. So only you, maybe you and your spouse will know what it is that you meant by that. So again, in a future video, I'll talk more about the specific apps. There are a ton of them out there. I didn't research many for today because I know the one that I use and I know the one that my wife uses. But I will research a bunch. Maybe we'll talk about those next Tuesday. For now, I hope that the video was informative. I hope that it now makes sense why some of these password rules apply. Again, I know that it's frustrating. We all have an incredible amount of electronic aspect to our lives, and we need to keep track of that. We need to be able to log in and transfer money and download things and upload things and share things and keep track of all of that. Just need to find a safer way to do it than writing the password down, password 123 and putting it on your monitor. Again, hopefully the information and the video was helpful. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week on Tech Talk Tuesdays.